Hi there, this is Jenny from the Sewing Palace in Helena, Montana, and today's inspirational video is on the Petit Four basket. The pattern is from byannie. This is the pattern. It's got great directions on it, and the finished basket is this cute little organizer basket. It's named after the small little Petit Four cakes that you can get at a specialized bakery. And what's nice about this basket, it's very quick and easy to sew up. It just takes a few items, and you can put baby items, you could put toys, you could put cosmetics in here, cut office supplies. It'd also be a great sewing basket for wonder clips, scissors, lots of great ideas. So once you get started making these baskets, you'll want to make more. Also a great gift to put something in, and then this is what the wrapping is. So let's get started making the Petit Four basket by Annie. Well, let's get started by collecting a couple of items to make the Petit Four basket. You will need the pattern, so it's called Petit Four Baskets by Annie, and we sell that here at the shop or on our website. And the way that we sell the pattern, you get your pattern, you also get a piece of soft and stable so that you can make the first basket, and 2 coordinating fabrics. So when you get that $9 pattern, you will get all the supplies you need to at least get started and make one basket. Then once you get hooked, you're going to want to make more. So the other items that you'll need are a stiletto or an awl is very helpful when you're working with foam, a marking utensil because we need to mark on the fabric, and this is a fabric-friendly friction pen, scissors, rotary cutter so that you can cut your pieces out. And then the other item that's really good for working with foam is wonder clips. So you can clip through that thick foam without using pins, and it holds all your layers in place. You'll need an ironing board, and I'm using a woolly pressing mat. An iron, a small iron, works great for this project, rotary mat and cutter. A sewing machine, and with your sewing machine, if you have a walking foot or a 1/4 of an inch foot, that will work great for this project because fabric can shift on the foam, so holding it in place with a walking foot is helpful, or a dual feed foot. Then in regards to the foam, you have a couple of choices. What's in the pattern is a piece of soft and stable. So soft and stable is a foam that has no fusible on it, and it's a great interfacing for bags and of course this basket. And it comes in packages. So you can get this package of soft and stable. It's 18 by 58, so it's basically a 1/2 yard. And this will make lots of baskets or cute little bags. Or they also have foams that have fusible web, and this is made by a company called Basel. So let me grab those. So the Basel, you can get it the same type of foam, but it does have fusible web on it. You can get it without any fusible web, or single-sided, so one side is fusible, or double-sided fusible foam. Today I'm going to be using the single-sided fusible foam. Again, you can buy this on our website. We sell it in the 1/2 yard cuts of 18 by 58. So that is a little bit of information on the foam, and then you can choose how you want to do that in the future. Then you'll need some fabric. You basically need 2 layer cake pieces or 10-inch squares, a little bit bigger. So go to your stash and pick something for the main fabric, and then something for the lining, and then choose your foam, and then pick a thread color that you like with those 2 fabrics. When you're choosing your main fabric and your lining, the main fabric is the one that encompasses the outside of the basket. Then the lining is in the inside, and it creates a little bit of binding that wraps over the front. So these are 2 examples of the Petit Four basket with your fabric. So choose your fun fabrics for that, and you'll follow the pattern for cutting. The lining will be cut a different size than the main fabric, and then once you have your main fabric cut, you will want to collect your piece of foam. So this is the piece that you will start with, the foam and the main fabric. When you're following the directions in the pattern and you've got your cuts, you will lay the main fabric onto the soft and stable. Today I'm using a single-sided fusible foam, so I'm going to use the iron to adhere my fabric to the foam. So this one side fusible foam will actually attach to the wrong side of the fabric. If you're using soft and stable, you'll use pins to pin it on. Once you've got your fabric temporarily held either with fusible or with pins, you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch around the edge of your main fabric to hold it to the foam. Then we'll trim it down to the size indicated in the pattern. Either you have pins if you're using soft and stable, or the single-sided fusible foam. It will just be sitting the main fabric on top of your foam, and you're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. As you stitch, the Bernina 1/4 inch presser foot has a measurement for the 1/8 of an inch, and that's on the inside of that toe. So if the edge of your fabric is lined up with the inside of that toe, you'll be sewing 1/8 of an inch. You'll sew all the way around, pivoting at the corners. When you're using a stiletto or an awl and this edge starts buckling or rippling on you, you can use the stiletto right up until the sewing machine needle and get it real flat as it approaches the sewing machine needle, so you don't end up with buckles or bumps. So this is the way that you would hold the fabric down as you proceed by stitching that 1/8 inch seam. When you approach the corner, you'll sink your needle into the fabric, pivot, and go around the next side. Once you've sewn 1/8 of an inch all the way around your main fabric, you'll trim this down so it follows the measurement in the pattern. If there's a little bit extra foam hanging off one edge, that is perfectly fine. This will get covered up again with a 1/4 of an inch seam, but you'll just want to follow the directions in the pattern for this final measurement. The reason why you sewed this down was to hold it to the foam in place. You've done that, you'll get your friction pen or your fabric friendly pen, and you'll follow the directions in the pattern of marking onto this. So you'll use your ruler and you'll mark all the way around following the measurements. So you'll create what looks like an H actually as you go around, and you're going to sew directly on those lines that you have marked. Now let's look at the stitching when you're stitching on that H or those marked lines on your fabric. You can use a straight stitch, which is your standard straight stitch, or this stitch is called a triple straight stitch. On this machine it's number 6. The icon looks like 3 separate lines of stitching and a very bold zigzag stitch. That indicates that it's going to do it 3 times as it sews. So it will sew forward 2 and back 1. After you've sewn on all of those lines, you'll have an item that looks like this. As you'll see, where that stitching is, it really folds nicely to form the bottom of our basket. We'll next mark some markings on this and cut out sections to form our box. Along the short end, we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch inside these larger sections, and then we'll trim away that piece close to the stitching. So use your 1/4 of an inch foot and sew just on these 2 sides. Those are the short sides of our rectangle. As you're sewing this 1/4 of an inch seam, Bernina 1/4 inch feet have a notch in the foot that is 1/4 inch from the needle. So when you get to that notch, you'll lift your foot and pivot, and that will be on the 1/4 inch mark. You'll cut away these 2 sections and you'll cut very close to that stitching line. Next, you will fold this in half. Using Wonder Clips, you will align the short ends and clip through them. The short ends here and here, you will stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can use a regular straight stitch or a triple straight stitch to do that stitching. You do want to secure the top and the bottom, so a 1/2 inch on each side. You've sewn a 1/2 inch on each short end, then you'll unclip it and you'll open it up to fold it differently. So when you open it up, you'll just fold it like that, open that seam up, and clip that seam so it stays open. And this last seam here is this last seam here is a 1/4 of an inch. So when you sew along this edge, that's a 1/4 inch. The side was a 1/2 inch. So clip that and sew this with a 1/4 inch seam. Now that you have those side seams, you have your box. You'll turn this piece right side out so your pretty fabric shows. Now we'll work on the lining. To prepare our lining piece, you'll cut the square indicated in the pattern, and then after you've cut the square, you will mark it following the directions. One direction is a larger measurement, and then one is shorter. So you want to make sure the larger go opposite from each other, and this is the shorter measurement. After you've done that, you'll then cut out this section here and here. Now you have a shape that's very similar to the outside of our bag, and the process is the same. You'll fold this up and sew these ends with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once those side seams are done, you'll then fold this just the same as you did on the basket, and you'll open this seam up. The trick on this process is you are going to leave an opening right here. So that's about a 1.5 to 2 inch opening suggested in the pattern, and that's going to be the hole that you'll turn the bag right side out. The other side you'll sew straight across that. So open that seam up, and you'll leave an opening just on one side that's 1.5 to 2 inches. So this seam allowance is a 1/4 of an inch. Once you've sewn a 1/4 of an inch with your opening and the 1/4 inch on the other side, you'll have a lining piece that looks like this. You will then take your basket and you will insert the basket inside the lining, making sure that the right sides touch. So that will be like this. And as you work your way around, you want to line up the raw edges of the fabric with the raw edges of the basket with the foam on it. The other thing you want to line up is your side seam and make sure both of those are open. So use your Wonder Clips and clip all the way around, lining up the raw edges. When you get ready to sew around the top edge of your basket, it's easiest to do in the free arm position, which is taking off your slide-on table. Then you have a little bit more room and access to be able to get to this edge as it goes around the free arm. This seam is a 1/4 of an inch seam. Remember, it's right sides together, and we'll just sew along. Now that you've sewn around the entire top edge, you will now bring the basket through that opening that you have in the lining. Now it's a small opening, so this will take a little bit of time to bring the basket through. Once you get your bag turned right side out, it'll be a little rumply because you had to pull it through that opening. And you can just work your way around with a small iron and kind of press those creases out and get this edge nice and flat. So take your time pressing and reshaping your basket. Once you've got your basket all turned and pressed out, this little opening that you left to bring it through, you can either hand stitch or sew by machine with matching thread. And then you will stitch in the ditch between the main fabric and your lining. This creates that little faux binding to finish off the edge. And voila, after that step is done, here is your completed basket. So this step is also, when you're stitching in the ditch, easiest to do when you have your free arm set up. Thanks for joining me today making the Petit Four Baskets by Annie. Shout out to byannie for creating a great pattern. We do have the pattern with the insert already inside it on our website, thesewingpalacebernina.com. We also have a great YouTube channel if you want to check that out with lots of fun videos. This is Jenny from the Sewing Palace in Helena, Montana. Have a great sewing day. Bye-bye.